Hello and welcome to Aliens Revealed Live. I'm your host, Dean Caparella, here on the Paranormal UK radio network. From alien abductions to monster-infested ranches, men in black, near-death experiences, close encounter experiences and more, we speak to some of the most amazing people on the planet ready and willing to share their chilling stories with you. And they all come from the Aliens Revealed Live files here on the Paranormal UK radio network. Well, the presence of alien-human hybrids on planet Earth appears to be for one specific mission, and it's not what many have been proposing over a number of years. The most popular belief surrounding the topic of alien hybrids is that they are being created to eventually take over our planet. But respected author Barbara Lamb says the hybrids she's encountered say they have a mission to raise the consciousness of humanity. As a certified hypnotherapist and regression therapist, Lamb has counselled countless numbers of people with a history of ET contact. She says the hybrids are clear and unanimous on their mission. Lamb, in association with Miguel Medonco, produced a landmark book titled Meet the Hybrids in 2015. The book highlights Lamb's research into the alien hybrids topic. It gives us a front row seat into the minds of the hybrids and their ultimate mission on Earth. And according to Lamb, who has over 100 hours of interviews with hybrids to back up her consciousness theory, a common theme resonated among the group. Lamb says there is more than one reason why certain people are chosen to be part of an alien-human hybrids program. But her research indicates the main reason is of a generational nature, which is not uncommon. And Barbara Lamb is joining us now. Hi, Barbara.
Hello, nice to be with you.
Oh, it's great having you with us. I've been looking forward to speaking with you for some time. I wanted to speak on, well, one topic mainly hybrids, but then we'll branch out later and have a look at crop circles and alien experiences. But firstly, the hybrids. And the first question is how prevalent is the hybrid program on this planet?
You know, that's very difficult to say in terms of numbers, but I will say that for me personally, gradually I am meeting more and more people, one by one, who think that they are, and it sounds like they are, ET human hybrids. So I personally know, I would say 16 individuals whom I feel convinced are hybrids. And then that's just me knowing them. And there may be many, many more around the world. And I suspect that there are many more because some of the benevolent beings, we think of them as extraterrestrial beings out there in space on different planets, that some of them are very, very concerned about planet Earth and concerned about humanity and all the difficulties and troubles and negative things going on here. And they look at us kind of like they're little brothers and sisters who need a little help because a lot of those species out there are so much more advanced than we are. They're much older, probably by thousands of years, maybe even millions. And so they've gone through a lot of the things that we have gone through here on Earth, or that we are going through. And they know that there's a better way to deal with a civilization. So therefore, because of their concern, some of these species are making a point of hybridizing certain human individuals so that those hybrids can really help here on Earth. The hybrids that I know all are very clear that they have a mission to help raise the consciousness of humanity. And it's very interesting about these hybrids because they are people who were born here from a regular mother in the regular fashion that we give birth. And they grow up in families and they look totally human. They look like their families and so forth. And so they can move through school systems and throughout society very comfortably. Nobody looks at them oddly or anything. It's not as if there's an extraterrestrial being who looks really different walking among us. It's just one of our own people. But they happen to have been given extraterrestrial genetics, and that's why we call them hybrids.
Yeah.
So anyway, these people realize from a very, very early age that they have abilities that most of the people, well, all of the people around them don't have. I'm thinking mostly of their psychic abilities. They can do telepathic communication. They are empathic in the sense that they can be with a person and know what's going on inside that person physically, like what kind of difficulties they might be having. They're very psychic in all of the psychic abilities. Some of them are clairsentients. They just have a sense of knowing everything without being what we think of as know-it-alls. And they all have healing ability to actually do physical healing with other people. Some of these hybrids have specialties beyond that too, like communicating really accurately with animals. And so anyway, they have a range of psychic abilities. Some of them channel information from the other side. Some of them channel information from these space beings who have helped to hybridize them. And so they're just very quietly, modestly going about their lives, teaching private courses and having private appointments with people to counsel and advise them and help them to develop spiritually.
Yep.
So they're part of a really large movement. And you ask how many people, I don't know, but I am certainly sure that there are hybrid people all over the world.
Well, I'm finding that I've spoken to quite a few hybrid people over the last few months, and I'm finding that I'm being contacted, like, I think once they're seeing others step out and speak about themselves being hybrids, more are coming out and gaining the confidence to come out and speak about it.
Yes. Yes, it's a wonderful service that you do in letting the people who watch your program, letting them know more and more about this. And that's how it happens, I find, with hybrids, and also with many, many people who may not be hybrids, but they've had a lifetime of occasional encounters with extraterrestrial beings. So that every time that I give an interview like this or give a lecture, which I give many of at a number of conferences, anytime I'm doing anything sort of public, shall we say, there's always somebody in the audience, maybe more than one, who will come forward afterwards or call me afterwards and say, wow, what you said reminded me of experiences that I've had that I remember just a little bit about. But they were very impactful. They really made an impression. And now I'm putting things together. And I realize that maybe I too have been really having these extraterrestrial encounters.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful for people when they realize that that has been going on for them. Because a lot of people have had extraterrestrial encounters, but they didn't realize what it was. And what they would be aware of would be just a very few moments at the beginning of the experience when they're visited by some beings, frequently in their bedroom at night, but it can also happen anywhere. And it can happen when a person has a very vivid sighting of a UFO, especially if it's within, a few hundred feet of them. That those are very impactful experiences. And what people often don't realize is that when they have a sighting like that, there's a whole encounter that follows their seeing the UFO, an encounter that they have had no conscious recollection of.
Mm-hmm.
So when people have had really vivid sightings like this, and also visitations in the room or wherever they might be, and especially if they've had a period of missing time, an hour or two that they just can't account for. They just don't know where it went. These are sort of typical clues that people have had these experiences. So what I have found as a therapist is that a person who's been wondering for a while, sometimes for decades actually,
Mm-hmm.
wondering if they have had these experiences because they've had these clues of possibly having these experiences, that when they will do the hypnotic regression work that I do and some others do, and they find out the details of one of those experiences, it actually provides a lot of relief for
Right.
them.
Yep. Yep.
And what they've been wondering about and what they've been sort of harboring in the subconscious part of their mind all these years, now it's clear, now it's known. And that's actually a relief for the person.
Mm.
And then it gives the person a chance to learn more about it if they want to in various ways, and to integrate that material into their life rather than it sort of irritating them, bothering them from the subconscious part of their mind.
Yeah. I just wanted
So
to.
what you're doing in bringing out some of this information to people is a really good service, Dean.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I wanted to ask, in your research, do you have any indication of why certain people are selected? Is it because they're part of a generational family line of people who have been taken?
Yes, I think there are more than one reason. The most commonly held reason is that that these encounters seem to run in a family line, like with a grandparent, a parent, the adult now, and then the adult's children or even grandchildren. And that doesn't mean that everyone in the family, everyone in that family line is having these experiences. Usually it's just one or two people in each generation. But the beings, the extraterrestrial beings, many of them seem to be really, really interested in our genetics and what gets passed on from one generation to another. And then I think there's another category of people who are taken for these experiences too. And in many cases, a lot of the cases that come to me, the people may not have a family lineage of extraterrestrial encounters, but they're people who have at least great potential
Mm-hmm.
for spiritual development. Because some of these beings are very, very advanced spiritually, and they want to help humans here on Earth to develop more spirituality, not religiosity, but spirituality, being aware of the great source, the great creator source of all of us, of those beings and us and all life in the cosmos, and to honor that source and to realize, as these beings so frequently say, that we are all one.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, on Earth, we do not emphasize we are all one, do we?
No.
In fact, it's just the opposite. We are a civilization of great polarity. For instance, it's emphasized my team over your team in all of the sports. My political party against your party, my country against your party, my race as separate from your race. So, in other words, all of these divisions and differences are emphasized a tremendous amount here in the world. And these beings say, you know, it really isn't that way. You are not separate individuals, different from each other. Even members of the same family or the same race, the same cultural group. You think of yourselves as individuals, but really you're all part of the one great life. So that means us people being one with each other, and us people being one with all of those many beings out there in space.
Yeah. Has your research shown whether this is being orchestrated by one race of beings, or is it a combination of several?
Well, I know that with each of the hybrids, they have the genetics from a few different races, not just from one. Like one person might have genetics from tall white Zeta beings and blue Arcturian beings and little gray beings and reptilian beings and Pleiadian beings and even other types of beings as well. Those beings seem to have gotten together and chosen this person to become a hybrid. And the way that they do that, do the hybridizing of these people who are living here with us on Earth as people, it's done before birth, definitely. And sometimes the hybridization is done even before conception. And the way that that is done is that on one occasion, the eggs will be taken from the woman, the mother, and sperm will be taken from the father, taken by the extraterrestrials. And then they mix that together with a combination of their extraterrestrial genetics, thereby creating an embryo. And then on another occasion, they take the human mother, the human woman, she's not a mother yet, and they implant the little embryo into her uterus. And then she carries the baby full term and gives birth the way that the rest of us humans do.
Right.
A second method that's very common for this is that the mother is already pregnant with a baby. And during the pregnancy, usually it seems about the 5th or 6th month in the pregnancy, the mother will be taken and injected with the extraterrestrial genetics, as in like a hypodermic needle, and those genetics will go into the fetus through the wall of the uterus and the wall of the abdomen of the mother, and then the baby continues to be carried full term and born in the way that we all give birth to our children.
Yeah, one hybrid I spoke with recently says that she actually remembers the actual moment that while she was in her mother's womb being injected at that moment, and she actually remembers that.
Well, I can respect that. It is very possible to regress people to life in the womb, and I've done that a number of times. And it's amazing, from my point of view, how conscious and aware these infants are while still in the mother's womb. And they can be aware of things like receiving different genetics. And one man I worked with for, probably about 10 years of regressions now and then. We went back in his first regression to being a fetus in his mother's womb.
Wow.
And an extraterrestrial being came and put his hands over the abdomen of the mother, apparently, because the fetus, my client, could feel all this wonderful heat and energy coming in through the wall of the uterus. And telepathically, the fetus heard the extraterrestrial being telling him why he was there and what he was doing.
Wow.
And in that particular case, the being was there saying that the fetus needed help, that he had a congenital hole in his heart, and that if the being didn't add healing energy to it and really help out with that condition, that the baby would not be able to live shortly after birth. So this being said, I am putting an invisible electromagnetic strip over the hole in your heart. And so the baby was born and lived and grew up to be a big 6'4" strong man and lived to his mid-50s. And along the way, during his growing up experience and also his adult experience, every now and then he would be taken for an encounter with this very same extraterrestrial being. The man was sure it was the very same one. And every time he was taken to the spaceship, he was laid on a medical type table. And the being said he was refurbishing the invisible electromagnetic strip over the hole in this man's heart. Yeah, and it kept him going all those years. And then when he was about 48 years old, it was detected that he really had a problem with his heart. Until then, nobody suspected such a thing.
No.
So at age 48, he went in for open heart surgery. And it happened, fortunately, that his wife was a surgical nurse, and she got permission to be there in the operating room while the surgery was going on. So she witnessed that the surgeon doing the heart surgery exclaimed once he had opened up the man and said, "Oh my goodness, this man has a hole in his heart the size of a silver dollar. And yet, very little blood is trickling out somehow, even with a big gaping hole, that somehow the blood is mostly being kept in his heart." So you see, that really corroborated with the being putting the invisible electromagnetic strip
fascinating
over the hole in this person's heart.
Yeah. Barbara, is hybridization, is it a modern phenomenon, or has it been going on since time memorial?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's a very interesting question, something I wonder about. I suspect it probably has been going on, and it could be very well that some of our spiritual teachers, whose wisdom goes down through the ages, it's possible, just a guess, but it seems very possible to me that maybe they were hybrids too and got some of their spiritual wisdom and perspective from these beings. So one thing I would like to mention right away is that the hybrids whom I know all have had a lifetime of visits from the beings whose genetics they have. So in other words, they have beings coming into their room, daytime or nighttime, and they are actually taken away to the spacecraft for various purposes, mostly for educational purposes and medical checkups to be sure they're doing all right physically, and to heal them if there's anything amiss with them physiologically.
Yeah.
So anyway, they have a lifetime of experiences with these beings, and they love these extraterrestrial beings because the beings feel like they're real family. In fact, all of these hybrids whom I know, they have said that from the very earliest time in their lives, very earliest ages, that they've always felt that their physical Earth family is not their real
Yep.
true family. And they've always looked up in the sky and thought, oh, that's my real home. That's where I really come from.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, I think it's because they have the genetics from those beings
Yeah.
who are out in space.
Have you met a gentleman by the name of Mike Oram from the UK?
Yes, I heard him speak.
Yeah,
And read
he
his
tells
book.
he tells a
I don't
fascinating
know
story
him.
of when he was a 4-year-old, and we'll be featuring it soon on Aliens Revealed Live. But he talks
Oh,
about
good.
being a 4-year-old and telling his mum telling his mum that she and his dad weren't his real parents, and so a conversation took place, and he told her exactly where he was from. He was from, I think it was the Pleiades system, and she, what does a parent do in that situation? You kind of think, well, a kid's imagination, and so yeah, it's fascinating.
Well, parents so often don't know what to do when their children speak about being from somewhere else, or even children who just say, "Oh, some strange beings came into my room last night, and I don't know what's going on." And if there's one parent who has had that sort of thing happen too in his or her own life, that person is usually more sympathetic. But for the parent who hasn't had anything like that and doesn't know anything about it, it's really, really baffling.
Yeah. Barbara, what do you say to skeptics who dismiss this without any research, and that's normally how they operate?
Oh, I know. And I so much understand that. I completely do, because I did not know in my life, well, until really 1991. So I had lived a lot of years before that. I did not know that there was reality to this. I had a real interest in certain movies like E.T.
Mm-hmm.
and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, both, I think, really wonderful films, and had a sense that, well, let's say a resonation going on in me that, oh, wouldn't it be nice if this were true? Wouldn't it be nice if there were really other beings out there in space? But I didn't really think it was true. I thought it was science fiction. But it wasn't until 1991 when somebody actually came to me for regression work that I realized, session by session by session, with the first person who came for that, wow, this really convinces me that these visits and these other beings are real. And you see, before that, before 1991, I had been doing several years of past life regression therapy. I had been trained to do regression therapy by the Association of Past Life Research and Therapies in Riverside, California. And after those years of training, I felt very comfortable in doing regressions. And during those years, it didn't occur to me that people would ever come with this particular concern, wondering what it was about these beings showing up and seeming to take them away for a while. So it was new to me, but soon became very, very convincing. And after the first person came in 1991 for that particular reason, just a few months later, another woman came, and she had probably 15 regressions with me over a period of several years. And another woman that same year came and worked with me for 12 years and probably at least 60 regressions. And it just happened. I mean, I'm amazed, absolutely amazed, because I never advertised about doing this, but people have just found me miraculously, I think, in some cases. They found me through lectures that I give at conferences and so forth, and interviews. And when they're ready to find out for themselves what their clues might mean, then they get in touch with me.
Yeah.
But I certainly had never earlier in my life expected to be doing anything like this.
It's a great book, Meet the Hybrids. As I say, it's so fascinating. But the one part I really loved was when you were telling the story of Christy Ann Quiros. If you remember it,
Yes.
Could you relate that story to our audience?
Well, Christy Ann Quiros is a psychotherapist. She actually was not one of the hybrids
No.
we interviewed and wrote about, but we did interview her at length anyway. And I had previously known her for quite a number of years, probably, at least 20 years, through meetings that we both went to about the UFO subject. And anyway, Christiane began to, she was working for her doctoral thesis for her PhD, and she had to, at a certain point, decide on what her doctoral thesis would be. And so she went to the beach one day here in California and just sort of sat there and got lost in thought, and what am I going to write about? What would be interesting to me? And then the thought just came to her as if from somewhere else that she was to write about hybrids, ET human hybrids. Well, she had never heard of that before, but she somehow resonated with that thought and began to research it. And to make a long story short, she met quite a few people, I would say several people whom she interviewed at great length, and eventually came to the conclusion that, yes, there are some people who are hybridized by these beings. She had already been very interested in the UFO phenomenon before that idea came to her, but she had not really been working with people who experience extraterrestrial contacts. So this was relatively new for her at the time. But she went ahead and she did that doctoral paper. And my co-author, Miguel Mendonça, and I got hold of the paper from her. Actually, I had already had it because I already knew her. But anyway, it was very wonderful for us to know that she had interviewed a number of people and had determined that they were hybrids. In other words, it was sort of encouraging for our work to continue that work further with different people who were hybrids.
Okay, so one last word on the hybrid topic. Just scanning a lot of the forums online, there are many people who tend to think that hybrids are a threat to humanity, but from the people I talk to and speaking with you today, that seems far from the truth.
Oh, you said what? I missed that word you said. That there's something of humanity?
That they're a threat to
A
humanity.
threat.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, that's a good point to bring up because there's a very well-known and respected professor back on the East Coast, Dr. David Jacobs, who has specialized in regressing people to extraterrestrial experiences and has regressed people to experiences that they've had with ET human hybrids on board the spaceships. I've had a lot of those regressions as well. But our conclusions are completely different from each other. David Jacobs is convinced, because of the work that he's done, that means the clients who have come to him for regression work, he is convinced that hybrids have been especially bred by certain extraterrestrial groups in order to have the hybrids come and live here on Earth with the goal of eventually taking over the Earth with hybrids. Now, that is just really the polar opposite experience that I have had with anything to do with hybrids. In my experience, the hybrids I know and have heard of, and probably some of the ones you know as well, are here for very, very benevolent purposes. They're here really to help humanity.
Right.
To take over. It has nothing to do with that at all. It's totally in service. In fact, my co-author and I put a subtitle on the book, Meet the Hybrids, and the subtitle is The Life and Times of ET Ambassadors on Earth.
Right.
And I love that because that's what they are. They are ET ambassadors on Earth. You see, I think it makes sense to realize that the extraterrestrial beings living on other planets, most of them look so different than we human beings look. And their whole physiognomy is really different. Their biological systems. So they cannot come here and actually live on our planet.
Right.
They would not be able to handle the bacteria and viruses, and nor would they be considered normal enough looking from a human point of view to be accepted here. So because they cannot come here themselves, that is why they create these hybrids. They take certain human beings and create hybrids,
right,
because they know that those people will be able to thrive here like the rest of us and be totally accepted here and do the work that these beings would like to see done here to help improve humanity.
That's Barbara Lamb. Well, when people look back at a timeline of human existence and the UFO phenomenon, the first 22 years of the 21st century will be looked at as a time when breakthroughs were made in deciphering the whole UFO mystery. But is it really a mystery? To millions of contact experiences around the world, that answer is an emphatic no. And to those yet to witness an identified object in the sky, then yes, it's still a mystery. But for experiences like Erin Montgomery, it will be like vindication. That's vindication that the work she is doing is paying off. And when Montgomery decided to come forward and talk about her contact experiences, it was a big step forward for her.
The most vivid one that I remember happened on October 27th in 2018. I was asleep in bed. I was dreaming I was in a haunted house. I remember that dream very clearly. And I woke up to the covers being pulled off of me. I'm currently separated, but I was with my husband at the time, and the blankets were being pulled off, but they were being pulled off not in his direction, like he had rolled over and taken the blankets. They were being pulled off on the opposite side of the bed. So that startled me awake, like what was going on? And at the side of my bed were three beings. Oftentimes you hear of three beings, but they're usually the small grays that are there. One of them was a very short, maybe 3 to 4 feet tall, gray alien with the big eyes and the big head that people talked about. That was one of them. There was a being who was about a foot taller. His skin was a ruddy brown. And the best way to describe it is like he looked like a melting candle or a melting crayon. It's like his face was kind of drawn down and his lips, I don't know, tentacles or something. I don't know. My brain didn't really process it very well. But then there was what I would call a tall white being with them, whose head is more shaped like a football. It's rounder, not necessarily elongated in the back. He had big black eyes, and he was wearing a uniform, blue with black piping around the edge. I think it was black, piping around the edges. And he was familiar to me, and I said, "Oh, it's you." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, come on." And I reached out and grabbed his hand, and I walked with the group through, out of my bedroom, through the living room, and then through the wall out into my yard. At which time I ascended into a ship. I don't remember the ascension process, going up. I don't remember that. But then the next moment that I am aware, I was in a room that was like a concert hall. It is enormous with tiers and balconies, and I was very high up, and I could see people all around me. They were all ages, all colors, all races. Some of them dressed for daytime, some of them in their pajamas like I was, and just so many people. And I remember looking across it from me, like at the balcony across the room. It had to have been a round room because that balcony didn't seem very far away, if that makes any sense. We must have been up at the pinnacle of the room. And it was a woman with bright red hair. I don't know who she was, but I was very excited to see her. And when she looked up, we're like, "Oh, hi." I knew her, at least on ship. I knew who she was. We felt comforted in each other's presence. "Oh, hi, I'm so glad to see you. This is great." And that's all I remember. I don't remember anymore after that. So that is probably the most vivid, most recent experience.
When Erin Montgomery decided to talk publicly about her contact experiences, she didn't do it quietly. Montgomery released her book, Dirty Little Secrets, in 2020. It created a lot of interest. She made many appearances on UFO and paranormal-related shows and podcasts to get her story and message out. She was on a mission, and that mission is to help contact experiencers know that it's okay to talk about what they've been through, but in a safe and non-threatening environment. And that's coming up on the next episode of the Aliens Revealed Live Files. You won't want to miss it. And thanks for being with us. Don't forget to check out our site at arlhub.com, arlhub.com. And as always, keep looking upwards and take care.